The red dust swirled around Lieutenant Peter Collins's helmet as he took his first steps on planet Co-139. The sky above burned crimson, and two pale suns cast strange shadows across the rocky ground. He checked his suit's oxygen levels again, a habit he'd developed during his 10 years in the Marine Corps. All clear, Keem. Radiation levels are within acceptable limits, he said into his radio. Behind him, the research ship's airlock hissed open again, and two more figures in white environmental suits stepped onto the alien world. Dr. Alice Wright, the team's xenobiologist, immediately pulled out her scanning equipment. Her movements were quick and precise, like someone who had practiced them 1,000 times. "These readings are fascinating," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "The soil composition is unlike anything we've seen on other rocky planets." Dr. Samuel Martinez, their cultural specialist, walked a few steps ahead, his hand hovering over the holographic interface of his mapping device. "According to the orbital scans, there should be some kind of structure about half a kilometer east of our position." The three of them formed part of the first human expedition to this strange world. Back home, people had started calling it Mars' angry cousin because of its red atmosphere and constant storms. But unlike Mars, this planet had secrets buried beneath its surface, secrets that had brought them across 20 light-years of space. Lieutenant Collins checked his weapon. Another habit. "Remember the protocols," he said. "We're here to observe and document. No touching anything without proper scanning first." He looked at his two civilian teammates, both brilliant scientists who sometimes got carried away by their enthusiasm. They walked across the rocky terrain, their boots leaving clear prints in the red dust. The wind howled around them, carrying particles that tapped against their suits like tiny bullets. Dr. Wright's instruments beeped steadily, recording everything about this alien environment. "Look there," Dr. Martins pointed ahead. Through the swirling dust, they could see something massive and geometric, too regular to be natural. As they got closer, the structure revealed itself. A massive wall of black metal, rising at least 50 meters into the crimson sky. "It's some kind of alloy," Dr. Wright said, running her scanner over the surface. "But the composition, it's not matching anything in our database." Dr. Martinez stepped closer, his eyes fixed on markings that covered the wall. "These symbols, they're not random. This is language, actual alien writing." His voice trembled with excitement. Lieutenant Collins was about to remind them about the safety protocols when something changed. A low hum began to vibrate through the ground, so deep they felt it in their bones. Lines of light appeared in the black wall, spreading like cracks in ice. "Step back," Collins ordered, but before anyone could move, a section of the wall simply vanished, revealing a dark entrance. The humming grew louder. "It's responding to our presence," Dr. Wright whispered. "This isn't just ruins, it's active technology." Despite his better judgment, Collins knew they couldn't turn back now. This was why they'd come, to make contact, to learn. He switched on his suit's powerful lights and took point. "Stay close. Martinez, record everything. Wright, keep scanning for any signs of danger." The corridor inside was enormous, clearly built for beings larger than humans. Their lights revealed more of the strange writing on the walls, along with what looked like display screens, now dark and silent. The air was stale but breathable according to their instruments. "This architecture," Martins said, his voice filled with awe. "It's all designed for efficiency. No decorations, no art, just pure function. Whoever built this was focused on practical purposes." They passed through several chambers, each larger than the last. Dr. Wright's scanner beeped continuously, recording data about the alien materials and technology surrounding them. In one room, they found what looked like weapon racks, empty now, but unmistakable in their purpose. "This isn't a city or a research station," Collins said slowly, realization dawning. "It's a military installation." Before anyone could respond, lights began to flicker on throughout the facility. Displays that had been dark for who knew how many centuries suddenly glowed with alien symbols. The humming grew louder, and now there was a new sound, like machinery warming up after a long sleep. "Something's happening," Dr. Wright shouted, her scanner beeping frantically. "Power signatures are spiking everywhere." Collins grabbed both scientists by their arms. "We're leaving. Now." They ran back toward the entrance, but other things were moving in the facility now. Panels opened in the walls and ceiling. Strange devices emerged, glowing with the same light as the displays. The humming had become a roar. Just as they reached the entrance, Dr. Wright's scanner made a sound they'd never heard before. She looked at the display, and her face went pale behind her helmet visor. "It's sending a signal," she said. "Into space. Very powerful, directed at multiple points." "What kind of signal?" Martins asked, but Collins already knew the answer. He'd seen enough military installations in his career to recognize what was happening. "It's a beacon," he said grimly. "We just triggered this facility's automated defense systems, and now it's calling someone." They made it back to their ship just as the storm intensified, as if the planet itself was responding to the awakening of its ancient technology. As they lifted off, Collins looked down at the facility through the view screen. More sections were lighting up, spreading out from where they'd entered. The whole planet was coming alive. Dr. Wright worked frantically at her console, trying to analyze the signal. "It's not just a beacon," she said after several minutes. "It's a message. The universal translators are having trouble, but I think it's saying the inheritors have arrived." Martinez looked up from his own readings. "This planet, it's not just a military installation. Based on what I saw in there, I think it's something bigger, something worse." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I think it's a training ground, a place where someone made weapons, living weapons, and now whatever we woke up down there is telling its makers that we're here." Collins stared out at the red planet below them, watching as more and more lights appeared on its surface. They had come looking for knowledge about alien civilizations. Instead, they had stumbled onto something that had been sleeping for ages, something that was now awake. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Priority 1. Tell them." He took a deep breath, knowing that everything was about to change. "Tell them we found something. But we're not the only ones who know we're here anymore." As their ship broke orbit, heading for the jump point that would take them home, none of them spoke. They had come seeking answers about humanity's place in the universe. Now they had found them. But Collins suspected they wouldn't like what those answers meant for Earth's future. Behind them, the planet of war stirred from its long slumber, its ancient systems coming online one by one, preparing for the return of its creators. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, something received its signal and began to move. Lisa Bennett sat in the dim light of Earth's Deep Space Communications Center, her eyes fixed on the screens in front of her. For 6 years, she had listened to the quiet sounds of space, monitoring signals from Earth's exploration ships. But tonight was different. Tonight, the silence had been broken by something new. "There it is again," she said, adjusting her headset. The strange pattern flashed across her screen for the third time in an hour. It wasn't like anything she had seen before. Not a natural phenomenon, not a human transmission, and definitely not random noise. She pressed the button that would connect her to her supervisor. "Sir, I need someone from cryptography down here. Now." 20 minutes later, Daniel Harris walked into her station, carrying a cup of coffee and looking like he'd just woken up. "This better be good, Bennett. I was in the middle of a nice dream about winning the lottery." Lisa played the signal for him. Daniel's sleepy expression vanished instantly. He put down his coffee and pulled up a chair. "How long has this been coming in?" he asked, his fingers already moving across the keyboard. "First picked it up about 3 hours ago," Lisa said. "But that's not the weird part." She switched to a different screen. "It's coming from multiple directions, 17 different points in space, all sending the exact same signal." Daniel's fingers stopped moving. "That's impossible. Unless someone wants to make absolutely sure we get the message. Lisa finished. They worked through the night, running the signal through every decoding program they had. Other staff members joined them as the hours passed. By morning, they had filled 3 whiteboards with calculations and possible translations. Got something? Daniel suddenly shouted, making everyone jump. It's not one message. It's 3 messages layered together. The first layer is just numbers, coordinates, and timestamps. The second layer looks like technical data. But the third layer, he trailed off, staring at his screen. What is it? Lisa asked, leaning over his shoulder. It's in English, he said quietly. Perfect, modern English. Everyone in the room went silent. On Daniel's screen, words appeared line by line. To the species who have awakened the planet of war. You have activated the training grounds of the Krethak Empire. For 50,000 of your years, we have slept, waiting for worthy successors to find our legacy. Your discovery of our facility has begun the assessment process. The Krethak are the greatest warriors this galaxy has ever known. On the planet you designated Co-139, we bred and trained the deadliest creatures in existence. We created weapons that could destroy solar systems. We built armies that conquered 1,000 worlds. And now we return. You have 6 months by your time measurement. 6 months to prove you are worthy of the power you have awakened. 6 months to prepare for our arrival. If you are strong enough to survive, you may be worthy to inherit our legacy. If not, your world will become our new training ground, and your species will join our collection of war beasts. The coordinates provided will show you where we will arrive. The technical data will help you understand the basic functions of the facility you have awakened. Prepare yourselves, inheritors. The Krethak come to test your worth. Lisa read the message 3 times before speaking. Get me Earth command. Now. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Military officers filled the communication center. Data was analyzed, reanalyzed, and sent to experts around the world. The coordinates in the message pointed to specific points at the edge of the solar system, places where space itself could be bent for faster-than-light travel. Admiral Catherine Rogers arrived shortly before noon. She read the message once, then looked at Lisa and Daniel. How certain are we that this is real? She asked. The signal matches what Lieutenant Collins's team reported from Co-139, Lisa said. And the technical data, it's already helping us understand the alien technology they found. This is real, Admiral. Admiral Rogers nodded slowly. Then we have 6 months to prepare for an alien invasion by an empire that's been conquering worlds for 50,000 years. She smiled grimly. And they're giving us access to their weapons and training facility. Almost like they want us to have a fighting chance. Or like they want us to be worth fighting, Daniel added. The Admiral turned to her staff. Get me everything we have on Co-139. Every scan, every photo, every word of Lieutenant Collins's report. And find me our best ships and crews. We're going back to the planet of war. As the room erupted into activity, Lisa looked at the message again. Something about it bothered her. Not the threat, but the tone. It wasn't just a warning. It felt almost like an invitation. She pulled up the signal analysis again, looking at the complex patterns that made up the message. Behind the words, behind even the technical data, there was something else. A pattern so subtle she had almost missed it. Daniel, she called. Take a look at this. The cryptographer joined her, and together they stared at the screen. Hidden in the background of the signal was another layer of data, one that wasn't mentioned in the main message. It's some kind of genetic code, Daniel said after a few minutes. But it's not like anything in our database. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. The message said they bred creatures for war. What if this is a preview of what we're going to face, Daniel finished. Or a hint about what we need to become. Across the room, Admiral Rogers was already organizing humanity's response to the threat. Ships were being called back from deep space. The best soldiers and scientists Earth had to offer were being gathered, but Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The Krathak hadn't just left them a warning. They had left them a challenge, a test, and maybe even a gift. The question was, could humanity figure out how to use it all in just 6 months? She looked out the window at the peaceful Earth below. In half a year, that peace would be shattered. But maybe, just maybe, what they had found on the planet of war would help them survive what was coming. Daniel was still working on decoding the hidden genetic data. Admiral Rogers was planning humanity's defense. And somewhere out in space, ancient warriors were awakening, coming to see if humanity deserved to inherit their legacy, or if Earth would become just another training ground for their living weapons. The clock was ticking. 6 months to prepare. 6 months to learn. 6 months to evolve. The warning had been delivered. Now it was time to answer it. The red dust of Co-139 swirled around the massive construction vehicles as they moved across the planet's surface. 3 months had passed since the Krathak's message, and humanity had been busy. What was once an empty desert was now filled with buildings, defense platforms, and training grounds. Engineer Christopher Brown wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the holographic display in the main control room. The ancient alien facility spread out before him like a glowing blue web. For weeks, he had worked to understand its systems, and slowly the mysteries were becoming clear. Power flow is stable, he said into his radio. Try activating Section 7. Outside, a portion of the ground split open, revealing a massive gun turret. It rose smoothly from its hiding place, its barrel longer than 3 buses placed end to end. Christopher smiled. Another piece of the planet's defense system was back online. Good work, Admiral Rogers said from behind him. She had made the planet her command center, coordinating Earth's preparations from the heart of the alien facility. How many systems have we restored? About 60% of the defense grid, Christopher replied. The Krathak's technical data helped, but some of this technology, it's like trying to understand space travel by looking at a rocket engine. We know what it does, but not how it really works. The Admiral nodded. Keep at it. Every weapon we can use is one more chance for survival. She turned to leave, then paused. And Christopher, remember to sleep sometimes. We need you sharp. In another part of the facility, Dr. Alice Wright and Dr. Samuel Martinez had turned the alien archives into their second home. Screens surrounded them, showing endless streams of data about the Krathak and their weapons. Look at this, Alice said, pointing to one screen. Their bodies can adapt to almost any environment. Extreme heat, cold, even the vacuum of space. But there's a pattern to how their cells work. She brought up another image, showing the genetic code Lisa Bennett had found hidden in the warning message. They're giving us the key to understanding their biology. Sanduel looked up from his own work. It's the same with their language and technology. Everything they left us. It's like a textbook. A very dangerous, very advanced textbook. He rubbed his tired eyes. But why? Why give us all this information? Because they want us to fight back, a voice said from the doorway. Lieutenant Peter Collins walked in, wearing a new kind of armor that merged human and Krathak technology. They're warriors. There's no honor in defeating someone who can't fight. Peter had spent the last 3 months training soldiers to use the alien weapons and combat systems. His team had learned to operate the strange vehicles they'd found in the facility's hangars, to use weapons that bent gravity and time itself. We found something else, Alice said. She pressed a button, and a new image appeared. The creatures they bred for war, we can modify them. Their genetics are designed to be changed, improved. Like building blocks we can rearrange. Peter walked closer to the screen. Can we use that? Create our own versions? Alice nodded slowly. Maybe, but it's risky. We'd be playing with forces we barely understand. Everything about this is risky, Samuel said. We're trying to learn 50,000 years of alien military science in 6 months." Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm. Christopher's voice came over the facility's speakers. "Admiral Rogers to the command center. We're picking up something in deep space." In the command center, Christopher's holographic display showed 9 points of light moving toward the solar system. They weren't at the coordinates the Krathak had provided, and they weren't due for another 3 months. "Scout ships," Admiral Rogers said grimly. "They're testing our defenses." "What are your orders?" Peter asked. He had rushed to the command center with the others. The Admiral studied the display. "Christopher, is the main defense grid ready? Sectors 1 through 4 are operational. Not as much coverage as I'd like, but enough to make a statement." "Dr. Wright, how are those creatures in Holding Bay 3 coming along?" Alice checked her tablet. "The modifications are stable. They're combat ready, but we've never tested them in real conditions." Admiral Rogers straightened her uniform. "Well, now we get to test everything. Lieutenant Collins, get your team to their stations. Dr. Martinez, monitor all communications. They might try to contact us first. Christopher, power up the grid but don't fire unless I give the order." As everyone moved to their positions, Peter looked at the Admiral. "What if we're not ready?" She smiled slightly. "Then we'll have to get ready faster. The Krathak want to see what we can do with their weapons. Let's show them." The next few hours were tense. The scout ships entered the solar system, moving faster than any human vessel could travel. They passed Jupiter's orbit, then Mars, heading straight for KO 139. Christopher's voice broke the silence. "They're in range of the defense grid. Hold position." Admiral Rogers ordered. "Let them make the first move." The alien ships stopped just outside the planet's orbit. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then Samuel called out from his station. "We're receiving a transmission." The message was short. "Demonstrate your progress, inheritors." Admiral Rogers looked around the command center at her team. The engineer who had mastered alien technology, the scientists who had unlocked ancient secrets, the soldiers who had learned to fight with weapons from beyond the stars. They had done the impossible, and they weren't finished yet. "Christopher," she said calmly, "show them what Earth can do with Krathak technology." The defense grid activated. Beams of energy that bent light itself shot from hidden turrets. Gravity wells formed and collapsed. Modified war beasts launched from their holding bays, their enhanced bodies glowing with power. It wasn't just a demonstration of force, it was a message. Humanity have taken the Krathak's gifts and made them their own. The scout ships watched for an hour, recording everything. Then, without a word, they turned and vanished into deep space. "Well," Peter said into the silence that followed, "I guess the real test starts now." Admiral Rogers nodded. "They've seen what we can do with their basic systems. Now we have 3 months to master the rest." She turned to her team. "Because next time, they won't be here to watch. They'll be here to fight." As everyone returned to their work with renewed urgency, Alice looked at the genetic data scrolling across her screen. "We'll be ready," she said quietly. "We have to be." The red dust continued to swirl outside, but now it moved around weapon emplacements and defense shields, around hangars filled with hybrid vehicles and training grounds where soldiers learned to fight like the galaxy's greatest warriors. Humanity had turned the planet of war into their fortress. 3 months remained until the Krathak arrived. 3 months to prepare for a battle that would decide Earth's fate. But they weren't just preparing to survive. They were preparing to prove themselves worthy of the legacy they had awakened. They came out of the darkness like a storm of stars. The Krathak fleet appeared exactly where their message had promised, their ships larger than anything humanity had ever built. Each vessel looked like a living thing, its hull covered in patterns that shifted and moved like muscles under skin. Lieutenant Peter Collins stood in the command center of KO 139's main fortress, watching the tactical display with Admiral Rogers and the others. The alien ships filled the screen, hundreds of them spreading out across the solar system. "Right on schedule," Admiral Rogers said calmly. "Christopher, are the defense systems ready?" Engineer Christopher Brown nodded from his station. "All systems at full power. The upgrades we made to the ancient weapons are holding stable." In the 3 months since the scout ship's visit, they had worked day and night to prepare. The planet of war had become a fortress unlike anything in human history, its surface bristling with weapons both ancient and new. Multiple signals incoming, Samuel Martinez called from his communication station. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. A deep voice filled the command center, speaking perfect English, but with a rhythm that felt wrong. "Inhuman. Inheritors. You have shown promise with our basic systems. Now face us in true combat. Show us if you deserve to survive." Admiral Rogers pressed a button on her command console. "This is Admiral Catherine Rogers of Earth. We accept your challenge, and we have some surprises for you." The battle began with a flash of light that turned night into day. The Kruthax ships launched their first attack, beams of energy that could cut through normal ships like paper. But KO-139 shields, modified by Christopher's team, held firm. "Return fire," Admiral Rogers ordered. "All batteries, execute pattern Alpha." The planet's defense grid came alive. Weapons that bent gravity itself reached out into space, creating zones where the laws of physics broke down. Several Kruthax ships were caught in these fields, their living metal hulls twisting in impossible ways. But the alien warriors hadn't spent 50,000 years conquering worlds for nothing. Their ships split apart, each section becoming a smaller but equally deadly vessel. What had been hundreds of ships became thousands. "They're launching drop pods," Peter shouted, pointing at new signals on the tactical display. "Ground forces incoming." Admiral Rogers turned to him. "Lieutenant Collins, you know what to do." Peter nodded and ran from the command center. He had trained for this moment for 6 months. In the hangar bay, his team was already suiting up in their hybrid armor, a combination of human engineering and Kruthax technology. "Remember your training," he called to his soldiers as they boarded their vehicles. "Everything we learned, everything we prepared for. This is it." The drop pods crashed into KO-139's surface like metallic rain. They split open, releasing the Kruthax war beasts, creatures bred and modified over millennia for combat. Some were massive, walking tanks with crystalline armor. Others were small and fast, moving like living shadows. But humanity had prepared for this too. Dr. Alice Wright's voice came over the radio. "Releasing our own creatures now. Good hunting, Lieutenant." From hidden bays across the planet's surface, modified versions of the ancient war beasts emerge. Alice had spent months studying their genetics, making them stronger, faster, and most importantly, loyal to humanity. The battle on the ground became chaos. Peter led his team through the red dust storms, engaging the alien forces with weapons that shot bolts of pure energy. Their hybrid vehicles moved like living things, responding to thoughts as much as controls. Above them, the space battle raged. Admiral Rogers coordinated the defense with precise calm, using strategies that merged human tactical thinking with Kruthax technology. Christopher kept the ancient weapons running, pushing them beyond their original limits with his modifications. Enemy ships breaching Sector 7. Someone shouted in the command center. "Redirect power to the gravity wells," Admiral Rogers ordered. "Don't let them establish a foothold." On the ground, Peter's team fought their way through waves of war beasts. The creatures were terrifying up close, all teeth and claws and engineered muscle. But the human soldiers had trained for this, and their modified armor gave them strength to match the monsters. "Watch your left flank," Peter called to his team as a particularly large beast charged them. He fired his weapon, the energy blast catching the creature in mid-leap. It fell, its crystalline armor cracking. Hours passed. The battle continued both in space and on the ground. The Kruthax were incredibly powerful, but humanity had turned their own weapons against them. Every time the aliens revealed a new weapon or tactic, They found the humans ready with a counter. "Something's changing," Samuel said suddenly, studying his readings. "The Krathak ships, they're adjusting their attack patterns." Before anyone could respond, a new voice filled the command center, different from the first Krathak voice, deeper and somehow older. "Enough of this testing. Show us your true strength, inheritors. Release our final gift." Dr. Wright gasped as her screens lit up with new data. The genetic code that was hidden in their message. It's activating. Every piece of Krathak technology on the planet is responding. Christopher's eyes widened as he looked at his own displays. The defense grid, the weapons, even our hybrid armor. It's all connected to that code somehow. They built everything to work together. To evolve. Admiral Rogers stood up. "Dr. Wright, what happens if we fully accept this gift of theirs?" Alice worked quickly at her station. "Based on these readings, it would change everything. Our soldiers, our weapons, even the planet itself, all transformed by their technology. But it would be a one-way change. We couldn't undo it." The Admiral looked at the tactical display. The battle was evenly matched now, but the Krathak still had forces in reserve. They needed something more to win. "Do it," she ordered. Alice pressed a sequence of commands. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then every screen in the command center lit up with strange symbols. Peter and his team felt their armor grow warm. The very ground beneath them began to hum. The red dust of Co-139 rose into the air, glowing with inner light. The planet itself was changing, responding to ancient commands written into its very structure, and humanity changed with it. Peter watched in amazement as his armor became like liquid metal, merging with his body in ways that should have been impossible. His soldiers reported the same thing happening to them. Their weapons pulsed with new power, and they could feel the planet's defense systems like they were extensions of their own bodies. In space, the human ships began to transform too, their hulls taking on characteristics of Krathak technology. The war beasts Alice had modified roared as they grew stronger, faster, smarter. The planet of war was awakening fully at last, and its human defenders were awakening with it. "Now," Admiral Rogers said quietly, watching her transformed forces prepare for the next phase of battle, "let's show them what humanity can really do." The real test was about to begin. The red dust of Co-139 now glowed with inner light, swirling around the transformed human soldiers like a living thing. Lieutenant Peter Collins looked at his hands, watching as his hybrid armor shifted and moved like a second skin. He could feel the planet's power flowing through him, through all of them. "Status report," Admiral Rogers called over the command network. Her voice sounded different now, carrying harmonics that hadn't existed before the transformation. "Ground forces are adapting," Peter replied, watching his team test their new abilities. Their weapons had become part of them, responding to thoughts faster than physical movements. "It's like we've been upgraded." In the command center, Dr. Alice Wright studied the readings from her transformed monitoring equipment. The screens now projected directly into her mind, showing her layers of data that would have been impossible to understand before. "The genetic modifications are stabilizing," she reported. "The Krathak code is merging with human DNA, but it's not overriding who we are. It's enhancing us." Christopher Brown's fingers danced across his control panel, which now felt more like an extension of his nervous system. "The defense grid is operating at 300% above previous capacity. We're not just using their technology anymore. We're improving it." Above the planet, the space battle had paused. The Krathak fleet hung in space, watching as humanity underwent its transformation. Their ships had pulled back to a defensive formation, waiting. New transmission from the Krathak flagship, Samuel Martinez announced. His translation systems now worked instantly, letting him understand the alien language as if it were his native tongue. The deep voice of the Krathak leader filled the command center. "The gift has been accepted. Now show us what you have become." Admiral Rogers stood up from her command chair. Her uniform had transformed with her, becoming a seamless blend of cloth and living metal. All forces, prepare for engagement. Show them everything. Hold nothing back. The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. Peter led his ground forces against the Krathak war beasts, but now they fought with perfect coordination. Each soldier could sense the other's movements, working together like parts of a single organism. The transformed war beasts that Dr. Wright had modified fought alongside them, their enhanced genetics giving them new abilities. They moved through the red dust like living shadows, striking with precision that matched their human commanders. In space, Admiral Rogers orchestrated an attack that used the very fabric of space-time as a weapon. The modified defense grid didn't just fire energy weapons, it created pockets of altered reality, trapping Krathak ships in bubbles where time moved differently. Their ships are adapting, Christopher called out. They're trying to copy our modifications. But that was where humanity's greatest strength showed itself. While the Krathak had perfected their technology over 50,000 years, they had stopped innovating. Humans, with their shorter lives and constant drive to improve, were already finding new ways to use the alien systems. Peter discovered he could merge with his vehicle, becoming a hybrid of man and machine that moved with impossible speed. His team followed his lead, each finding their own ways to push the limits of their transformation. Dr. Wright, working with the genetic data that flooded her enhanced mind, found ways to evolve their defenses in real time. Every time the Krathak deployed a new type of war beast, she could modify their own creatures to counter it. They're pulling back, Samuel reported, watching the tactical displays. Their fleet is regrouping for another attack. Admiral Rogers smiled. No, they're not regrouping. She could see it in their movement patterns, could feel it through her enhanced connection to the battle network. They're considering. The Krathak leader's voice came again, but this time it held something new. Respect. You have taken our gifts and made them your own. In 50,000 years, no species has done this. They all tried to copy us to become us. But you have become something new. Peter and his team gathered near the main fortress, their transformed armor reflecting the glow of the planet's energized surface. In orbit, the human ships had formed a defensive line that mirrored the Krathak fleet's position. We have seen enough, the Krathak leader announced. You were not meant to be our servants or our soldiers. You were meant to be our successors. Dr. Wright's eyes widened as new data flowed through her enhanced systems. They're sending us everything. Their complete technical database, their full genetic library, their entire history. It was always a test, Samuel said, his transformed mind quickly processing the alien information. They weren't looking for someone to conquer. They were looking for someone to carry on their legacy. The Krathak ships began to move, but not to attack. They were forming a circle around the planet, their weapons powering down. For too long, we have been the galaxy's warriors, the Krathak leader said. We have grown old, set in our ways. The galaxy needs new protectors, ones who can adapt, improve, and grow. You have proven yourselves worthy of this role. Admiral Rogers stood before her transformed crew. And if we refuse? You already chose, came the reply. When you took our gift and made it better. When you faced us not as copies of ourselves, but as something new. The planet of war is yours now. Use it wisely. The Krathak ships began to fade from view, their forms becoming transparent. We go now to our long sleep, their leader said. The galaxy is under your protection. Others will come, seeking conquest or destruction. Show them what you have become. As the alien fleet vanished, Peter looked out over the transformed landscape of Co-139. The red dust still swirled, but now it moved with purpose, forming patterns that reflected the planet's new nature. His team stood with him, their hybrid forms a perfect blend of human and Krathak technology. In the command center, Admiral Rogers watched as the last traces of the alien ships disappeared. Well, she said to her crew, It seems we have some work to do. Dr. Wright was already exploring the vast database the Krafak had left them, her enhanced mind discovering new possibilities with every moment. We can help Earth advance centuries in just a few years with this knowledge. Not just Earth, Samuel added. They've made us protectors of the whole galaxy. Christopher looked up from his systems, which were still adapting and improving even without the Krafak's presence. We'll do better than they did. We won't just maintain the peace. We'll help other species grow, like we did. Peter keyed his comm, connecting to the Admiral. Orders, ma'am. She looked at her transformed crew, at the readings showing how the planet of war had become something new under humanity's influence. First, we learn everything we can. Then we teach others. The Krafak ruled through power. We'll protect through progress. The red dust of Co-139 settled into new patterns as Earth's first galactic defense force began its work. They had come seeking knowledge and found a purpose. They had faced the galaxy's greatest warriors and become something more. The planet of war had become a planet of protection, and humanity had taken its first steps into a much larger universe, not as conquerors or servants, but as guardians of a legacy they would make their own. The real journey was just beginning.